If you're not a threat,
Sure.
then you're weak. Like you have no influence. You have no capacity to do anything. If you're not doing it for yourself, do it for your brother, your sister, your child.
Mm-hmm. It's like, where would you stand up for yourself or not? You know, that's always been something I've struggled with. Is physical violence ever a good thing? You know, Jesus like never used physical violence, and like obviously the Old Testament, you know, talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
But like that was obviously like the old covenant, so it's not really the same thing. But like Jesus never says like to defend yourself or like to.
He says the opposite.
Right, exactly.
On the Sermon on the Mount.
He says the opposite. He's like, yeah, turn your cheek, you know.
Yeah.
If a man like takes your, take your cloak, give him your food or whatever, something like that, you know. So yeah, we were like, well, I feel like that's pretty anti-American. Maybe not anymore. Maybe I don't know. I don't even know what we're at right now.
Yeah.
But
I guess I'd start with the opposite of what seems to be the tendency now, which is, you know, pacifism at best, cowardice is what it typically is, and say, again, back to Jordan Peterson, like you have to be a warrior. You have to be capable of great harm in order to be, I guess, effective. Like, if you're not a threat,
sure,
then you're weak. Like you have no influence. You have no capacity to do anything. The only thing you can do is just be weak. But if you have the capacity to destroy people, to entice fear, well, then it's precisely that makes you effective.
Right.
And you're all the more effective because you can control yourself.
Right.
So the violent man is actually less powerful than the man capable of violence who restrains himself. So that's the most powerful man.
So do you think Jesus was capable of violence?
Oh, for sure.
Do you think he was a threat?
Yes.
How so?
I mean, you said he didn't do anything violent. I disagree. He, when he goes to the temple and overturns the tables, that's true. I think he scared the shit out of a lot of people. And so, yeah, I doubt anyone confronted him one-on-one. They always probably were around their homies, like, hey, let's go confront Jesus together because I can't do it alone. It took a mob, to go arrest him. Yeah. And even then, that's crazy. He says I could call on my Father's angels and I could destroy you all, but I lay down my life. You don't take it from me. The capacity for doing great harm and destruction, but that's channeled into doing remarkable good. Right. Right. And so you're ultimately fearless in the face of anything because you can conquer anything you want. So I'd say that's the goal, to be capable of pretty much anything, but then you channel that into only doing what is good. So then, consequently, we should strive to do no harm. Right? We intimidate the evil people into not doing evil, and then we protect the weak and the innocent from being harmed.
So how do people know that you're like really strong if you don't ever act on it? Well, in Jesus' case, I feel like it's tough because like obviously he was really strong, but like he just anything he said like happened, and we don't have that same capacity.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the strong people in the world or around you, they carry themselves in such a way that they just carry themselves they demand and command respect.
Right.
And then when pushed and confronted, someone who's actually weak inside but has a strong front usually gets like really upset. Whereas the strong, confident, comfortable person in the face of like a threat, they're really calm and controlled, and sometimes even like
yeah,
they laugh at it. It's like a joke almost. And I'd bring up, I guess I could bring up examples of people that I think are strong. I mean, I've never seen Jordan Peterson threatened, but obviously he when he's confronted by someone verbally,
yeah,
he just keeps a calm persona and questions and challenges, and he doesn't insult the person, even though he often gets insulted. So yeah, Jordan Peterson is a great example verbally, and he's been in very hostile environments. I mean, there's a lot of Ultimate Fighters who would probably, I don't follow it as close as I used to, who, they're, basically in a gladiator match in front of thousands, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of people, and they, obviously they're very focused and serious in some ways, but they're actually often too very calm and just like, yeah, I trained for this. I'm good.
So would you say that there's like a difference though between like doing physical harm and being like strong? Because like Jesus never physically harmed someone. Maybe that's more where I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
Like when it comes down to like even like self, preservation. Like when Peter goes to like cut the dude's ear off.
Right.
Jesus is like, no. And obviously like Jesus knows what's going to happen, and he's, he wouldn't have let something that was out of his will happen, or out of God's will.
Right.
So, but like he never physically harmed someone. And same with like Jordan Peterson. Like he's never going to, I don't know. I'm sure Jordan Peterson, if he was like protecting his family, I'm sure he would like throw down,
Exactly.
But like, I don't think Jordan Peterson is the do all be all necessarily.
Sure.
Like if we go back to Jesus, like he never hurt anyone, physically at least. Or maybe like unto death. Jesus would never unalive someone.
Remove their life.
I don't think, and again, it's tricky because like he's in control no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And we're not, but like, maybe that's just it. Maybe like we should be trusting him so much that we don't need to protect ourselves or protect the people around us.
I think there is a place for that thought, but I would say, so real quick, back to the MMA guys, UFC guys, they rarely get in fights outside of the ring, because they command so much respect. No one's going to mess with them.
Right.
So that's kind of what.
Unless you're Conor McGregor.
Yeah. So the question is, Jesus didn't protect himself, and he didn't, in a way, we have no record of him protecting someone else with physical force.
Or like the martyrs, like the early church, none of them.
And so I think we need to make a distinction between protecting yourself and protecting the people who depend on you. So if you're protecting your children or your wife, I think you should be willing, first of all, to die for them, and second of all, be willing to kill them if it requires that.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Because for the children especially, they're unable to do that for themselves.
Right.
And so when they're of a certain age, adults, they can choose whether or not to lay down their lives. But as long as they're under your protection, you have an obligation to defend them. And if it means taking someone's life, obviously that shouldn't be your first resort, and you shouldn't get excited about it. But if someone breaks in your house and you think, which you should assume, they're a threat to your children's life, you should do what it takes to remove the threat.
Aren't there stories of like the early church martyrs, like it's like them and their whole families like getting like burned alive?
And that's martyrdom. That's like,
Yeah.
if a guy broke in
Yeah.
and said, do you reject Jesus? Okay, then you can say, well,
Right.
no, I don't. But yeah, I guess that so potential martyrdom, I think, is a distinct category that should be addressed separately than just general protection of women and children.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't thought about that as like a separate thing, really.
Yeah.
But
then finally, protecting
I see what you're
yourself,
saying.
I think, again, someone who is confident in themselves, knows what they're capable of, it's heroic to lay down your life for someone.
Right.
Even, especially, like, that's what Jesus said, is, I lay down my life for you, not when you were friends, but when you were enemies. Like, he laid down his life for us when we were separate from him.
Yeah.
And so the same thing could be said of someone who lays down their life for, who refuses to take someone else's life, who's a threat to them. Like, but that's heroic. I mean, that's ultimately what Jesus is probably calling us to do. But it's not because you're incapable of defending yourself. It's because you choose to lay down your life for them, just like Jesus did. Not, oh, I'm weak and I couldn't defend myself anyway. Like, I don't think Jesus is asking for us to be, weak.
So you would say the main like reason to be capable of violence is to protect others, or to like strive after being like capable of that.
I'd say that's the primary reason, but also to command respect, like, in general.
But I just don't think that Jesus was ever like, I mean, I don't know. It's hard because like you don't think of Jesus as like being a violent person, because he wasn't. But was he capable of violence? I guess the tables is like a situation that wasn't super chill. He just like went in and kind of threw down. And like I think it says he made a whip and like started like chasing people out with the whip.
They were terrified.
Which is
and they were probably all the more shocked because they'd not seen it.
Right.
So I don't think you should be scary. But I think
like you basically know that what you are capable of.
Yeah, and
like
then,
you don't have to like strut it or stunt it.
Exactly. And if people push you, they're going to find out too. But usually people aren't going to like push you to that point.
Yeah. So I guess something that I've always been like confused about is like, at what point do you command respect versus just being like humble? Or where like if someone, I guess this is going off of topic a little bit, but if someone's like not necessarily attacking you, but maybe a little bit, not in a physical sense, just in like they're attacking your respect a little bit. It's like, where would you stand up for yourself or not? That's always been something I've struggled with, because it's like, I want to be humble. I don't want to like, be like, if I'm confident in who I am, then I don't need to like prove to anyone else necessarily. But at the same time, if someone's just like, dragging you through the mud in front of everyone else, it's like, okay, that's not necessarily cool either.
Yeah.
But would Jesus do that? I don't know, because he knows it's hard, because it's like you got to figure out, I guess, what's important and like whose standards you're respected by, because like you're never going to be able to, I think, be respected by everyone. That's just not feasible.
Right.
So if you know that God respects you, I guess, because you love him and you're seeking after him, then I think that should be the main thing that matters. But beyond that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. Humility is kind of the counterbalance to that. Not that they're opposed, but it's a critical part of being strong is being humble. Which is, humility ultimately is just an awareness of who you are, and who you are is.
Yeah, it's like a deeper confidence almost.
Yeah, you're loved by God. That's where your dignity comes from, not from anything you can do. And then that humility is recognizing that the person who's attacking me is also loved by God. So yeah, why are they attacking me? Well, they were probably abused in some way. They were mistreated, and so loving them in that occasion of where they're attacking you is the most powerful thing you can do.
Yeah. That's a good distinction though. Like, I've never like said it or phrased it this way, but humility is like the ultimate form of confidence.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that it's like, it doesn't matter what they think or what, what happens to you. Like, like when everything's said and done, like who's winning, or
Exactly.
who's
Yeah.
in like a bigger sense, I guess.
Yeah. Who you are.
Yeah, who you are, who your God is, and you don't have to like be seen in that way.
Yeah. And if you look at when Jesus gets upset or goes on the offensive, it's when they're attacking the Father. Like if you look at the trial, when Jesus remains silent for the most part, but when they're attacking like his relationship with the Father or the Father, he goes, he questions them.
Yeah.
And so that would be like, it's one thing to make fun of me, but it's another thing to make fun of my mom.
Right.
Or my Lord, or
no, I think
or
that's
my
really
children.
Good.
And so it goes back to the obligation to protect others versus the call to sacrifice yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are tough things to do, especially in the moment. In the moment when you're being attacked,
for sure,
it's almost impossible to love somebody. That's where God's grace comes in.
And I think it's like almost like you have to be so focused on God that you're already thinking about God before this even happens.
Well, yeah.
Because like if it happens and you're just caught off guard, like you're gonna freak out a little bit, or you're gonna like start, fighting back or whatever. But like you have to almost be like so connected with God that it's like as soon as that happens, you already know like what you're gonna do. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, you're so connected with God that you know that everyone in front of you is loved by God too.
Yeah.
So why would you harm one of his children?
Right.
You wanna protect his children.
Yeah.
Even if they're like violent with you.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know if this is true, but I saw this thing that like there was this one time Plato was like having an argument, and he was like a wrestler, I guess.
Okay.
And they were having an argument, and he basically took his shirt off and was like, all right, let's wrestle to decide who wins, which that's a little more classy. But this is why I always hated John Wayne movies growing up, because like if you really like pay attention to it, he's kind of just a big like jock that like bullies everyone a little bit.
Gets the better of everyone.
Yeah. And it's like just because he's like maybe a little bit smarter and bigger and has like a quicker draw. Like that's what the Old West was. It's just everyone bullying each other,
Exactly.
It's like totally ego driven, and it's like you say one thing and people are fighting to the death, which is like crazy.
It is crazy.
But it's like growing up, you see that and you're like, oh, cowboys are men, John Wayne's a manly man. So it's like, that must be something that's good,
Exactly.
But
Here, it's a difficult, I guess. It requires extreme prudence to know when to.
Yeah.
As the song says, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. And it's not always clear until after the fact. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I think genuinely it did confuse me a little bit as a kid, because it's like you do see all these role models that like, for lack of a better term, are just like flexing their strength on everyone else,
Exactly.
And yeah, that kind of confuses you as like a boy, because you're like, okay, like here's people I look up to that are famous, that are like, when I picture like a man, it's like, I think of Conor McGregor, he's a manly man, but like, I don't know. there's definitely a lot of things that like Conor McGregor does. Not to single him out, because like we all, you know. But like I've definitely seen him like, and I'm sure it's hard when you're in the spotlight so much, but I've definitely seen him like use his strength or like riches for just really selfish gain, I guess. And
Sure.
again, at the end of it is interesting like where we're at technology wise, and just like because it's like people kind of don't get away with stuff anymore, you know. So
True.
maybe that is good.
Yeah,
or it's harder to get away with stuff rather, but
it basically removes people from doing really stupid things, hopefully.
Right.
Or at least it turns them into an example so that other people don't become that stupid. Or
Well, we just started talking about the Revolutionary War because I thought that was like a good example. Like yeah, there was a lot of like extreme violence used, you know, for something that maybe some people would be like, it's not that big of a deal. Or you could just like,
at the time,
like, is it worth that many people dying and killing that many people just so you don't get taxed? Like from a biblical perspective, I feel like it's hard to argue that it is a little bit, you know, and obviously there was crazier stuff going down. Like people were getting like, you know, tarred and feathered.
Right.
So like, we just think of like the Tea Party, but like, I'm sure there was just wild stuff that was going down.
Oh yeah.
That the British government was getting away with, but yeah, so it's like, is that, I just think of like any kind of war, is any kind of war really like justified almost in the modern day?
And when is the modern day start for you?
I'd say like the New Testament.
Oh.
Just like past the Old Testament. Because like, I don't know. The Old Testament's super violent.
Oh yeah.
Like the entire Old Testament. And a lot of that was like God, you know, telling the Israelites to be violent. So, you know.
Right.
But then it's that's I feel like would be a little confusing too, especially to someone who's like doesn't know that much about Christianity. Just like, why was God okay with all of that violence and now he's not, you know?
Right. Oh, that's the atheist's biggest objection to Christianity.
Right. And obviously there's a lot of nuance there. But
yeah. We can go into that another time if you want.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess the simple response is, I mean, I think you look at tyrants or, you know, dictators who are plotting to take over the whole world, like, you know, Hitler or Stalin.
Right.
Like, I would think most people recognize that they need to be stopped somehow. You know, nowadays, obviously, we can get our special forces to go, you know, snipe them. But that wasn't the case with Hitler. So yeah, I don't know that you could defend total non-aggression, especially with certain individuals in history like Hitler and Stalin.
But is there like at all an argument to be made like trust God and like he'll deal with them kind of? Or like maybe not even that, maybe just like this life doesn't matter so much.
But again, the duty to protect your family.
Yeah.
And I would say your country comes under that. It's other people's children.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, with Hitler, it's a little more objective because it's like, okay. Like, it's not so much of a two countries just trying to take each other's land. It's like, okay, this is pretty messed up.
Right.
You know?
Now, the Revolutionary War actually is a good... It is like the amount they were taxed is nothing compared to what we're taxed today. So
right. Granted, it was like without representation. So
right.
But do we have representation?
Good
Cut.
Good question. We think we do.
Yes, we do. Hopefully.
Maybe someday we should run for office to see if we actually do.
Yeah.
If we get pushed out, then we'll conclude otherwise. The American in me says, heck yeah, the Brits needed to be opposed, and
America.
yeah, America. And yeah, you brought up some examples of things where people actually did get killed by British soldiers.
Right.
And yeah, the British basically, I forget what minute it was, where soldiers can basically use your house.
Oh, right. Quartering. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Like, that's kind of messed up. Hey, we're going to stay here, with your teenage daughters.
Yeah, and do whatever.
So I mean, I don't think it was merely taxation that they were opposing. It was definitely a series of insults and oppression. And I would say at a certain point, it's like, no, we're not going to be victims anymore of your tyranny. But what about your boss? What if your boss is a tyrant?
Yeah.
Well, okay, he pays me. I'm going to do whatever he says.
Well, but that's where it's like, well, Jesus, there's like bigger issues and spiritual issues, but it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I get that and I agree, but like to some degree, we're here. We have physical bodies for a reason,
right?
So it's like you do have to take into account physical measures a little bit. They do affect you.
Yeah.
So,
and again, the idea is protecting others, protecting the weaker. So if your boss or your government or whoever is oppressing you, they're also oppressing someone else. So you might be the one assigned or called to protect the other guy. And so to stand up to the tyrant. So if you're not doing it for yourself, do it for your brother, your sister, your child.
Mm-hmm. But like I almost feel like you could save more people in a spiritual sense by not fighting back. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can fight back, or I can like tell them about Jesus.
Yeah.
Is there like a place for that?
Yeah, I think a big movement that I don't know where it actually began, but it certainly, was employed by Martin Luther King, Gandhi.
Right.
What's the South African guy?
Yeah.
I forget his name. But nonviolent resistance.
Nelson Mandela?
Yeah, Mandela. Like the idea that I'm going to stand up to oppression with full force, but non-violently. And it's often more effective.
Yeah.
Because
there you go.
Like if someone's punching you in the face repeatedly and you're just standing there like smiling at them.
Right. It's like, what the heck?
And loving them. Like at a certain point that like they have to realize that they're the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and again, it takes wisdom to know, again, if someone breaks in your home, is going to, harm your children, harm your wife, that's not the time for nonviolent resistance. You can't really resist them nonviolently at that point there. But there are other occasions when you can get a group of people together and protest. I mean, protest is it's what America's been built on. And so protests are a great thing if they're done peacefully and civilly.
Yeah.
Because you're saying this is an injustice. We will not stand for this. We are going to show our opposition without harming somebody. So I think that has its place for sure. And again, I think physical violence should be your last resort. So if you've tried nonviolent resistance and it's like the guy's in my house about to kill my wife, you got to act. You got to protect your wife. You got to protect your kids.
So you're saying it would basically always be a defensive move, pretty much, not like, or maybe offensive in the sense that it's defensive. Like if
Exactly.
you're attacking Hitler, it's because you're not starting it, you're finishing it.
Exactly.
Or you're trying to, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yell if you need a spot.
Okay. Ooh, what's the call to action?
If you think you're a tough guy,
Yeah.
then go do something humble. What's a good I was gonna say go visit a prison. I mean, I worked in a juvenile detention center, and it
Really?
it impacted me a lot to have
Wow, I didn't know
a lot
that.
more mercy on criminals.
What if you're like kind of afraid that you're not? I mean, I think this is a fear of all men a little bit, but like afraid that if it came down to it, like you would be a coward a little bit, or like I think all men are like, if something really happened, and I like would I be able to do it? Would I be able to like be there for that person or like protect that person or whatever? So what about like that? Do you think there's a way to like work on that maybe?
Absolutely. I think you probably need to train like martial arts.
There you go. That's pretty legit.
I mean, that's not a small commitment.
Yeah. All right. See you next week. Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu or wrestling or
Yeah, no. That's good.
kickboxing.
Yeah.
Something where you have to face another person who's attacking you, and
Yeah.
obviously it's not malicious, but
Right. You're training your mind to be able to like control itself in those situations.
in those situations where you have to be aggressive but
Yeah.
also calm.